Okay, get this. An airline announces a massive $77 million loss. So what happens next? Its stock shoots up 15%. Now, on the surface, that makes absolutely zero sense. So today, we're going to unpack the bizarre but kind of brilliant comeback story happening right now at Frontier Airlines.
So, let's start with the big, scary number. In the third quarter of 2025, Frontier Airlines reported a net loss of $77 million. You'd think a number like that would have investors running for the hills, right?
Well, they didn't run. In fact, in the days right after that announcement, Frontier stock actually surged by 15%. So, down $77 million, but the stock is soaring. What is going on here?
The answer, as you can probably guess, isn't so simple. It's really a wild mix of a clever new strategy, a pretty big dose of luck, and, oh yeah, the dramatic collapse of their biggest rival.
To really see why investors were optimistic, we have to pop the hood and look inside that $77 million loss.
Now, what's fascinating here is that some of these negative numbers are actually part of the plan. Yeah, total revenue fell 5%, but that's because Frontier deliberately cut its capacity, basically the number of seats they had for sale, by 4%. They actually chose to fly less. And you know what? It worked. The planes they did fly were fuller. The load factor, which is just the percentage of seats filled, jumped up 3 points to 81%.
And here is the real key. On Wall Street, it is all about expectations. The experts, the analysts, they expected Frontier to lose 37 cents for every share of its stock. Instead, the airline only lost 34 cents. Now, that might sound like splitting hairs over pennies, but to investors, it was a huge signal that management had a much better grip on their costs than anyone gave them credit for. It was a classic better-than-feared results, and that is a major win.
But see, that cost control, that's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Frontier isn't just trimming a few flights here and there. It's completely reinventing itself from the ground up.
This chart really shows you the night and day difference. The old Frontier was your classic, no-frills, ultra-low-cost airline. You know the type, bare-bones fares, flying pretty much everywhere, and just chasing growth no matter the cost. But the new Frontier, it's playing a much smarter game. It's adding premium options, focusing only on the routes where it can actually make money, and putting profits way ahead of just getting bigger.
And they're not just talking about it, they're doing it. They're adding actual first-class seating to attract people who are willing to pay more for comfort. They're creating BizFare bundles to go after corporate travelers. Get this, their loyalty program revenue is up a staggering 40%, and they've become one of the most reliable airlines in the country for on-time flights. This is a very, very different airline than it was a year ago.
This quote from their report just says it all. They're not trying to be the absolute cheapest ticket anymore. They're trying to offer the best overall value. And that subtle shift in thinking is at the very heart of their entire turnaround. But believe it or not, their own internal strategy, that's only half the story.
The other half comes from a massive earthquake that just shook the airline industry, and more specifically, the stunning collapse of their biggest competitor.
You see, in November of 2025, Spirit Airlines, Frontier's main rival in that ultra-low-cost space, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. For Frontier, this was like winning the lottery. Suddenly, their primary competition was basically taken off the board.
This whole situation created a perfect storm for Frontier. First, with Spirit shrinking, there are way fewer cheap seats flooding the market. That gives Frontier what's called pricing power. So second, they can charge higher prices and still fill up their planes. And third, Frontier's pouncing on this opportunity, launching 42 new routes to scoop up all the customers that Spirit left behind.
All right, so you've got this new strategy on the inside, and your biggest rival just disappears on the outside. What does the flight path ahead actually look like for Frontier?
Well, the outlook is incredibly optimistic. The company is so confident in their new strategy and this new market landscape that they're forecasting a return to actual, real profitability in the very next quarter, just in time for the super strong holiday travel season.
Of course, it's not all clear skies from here on out. There's still some turbulence ahead. Fuel prices could spike at any moment. Higher labor costs are just a new reality. And if the economy starts to weaken, their core customer, the budget-conscious traveler, might just decide to stay home.
So this leaves us with the big question. By shifting its focus from just being cheap to providing real value, all while its main rival implodes, has Frontier finally cracked the code? Have they found the secret sauce for making budget travel actually profitable? Or is this just a temporary lift from a competitor's historic fall? We're definitely going to be watching.